Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Graves. I am the Community Engagement Specialist at Bridge Street Development Corporation. And we're so excited to partner with Senator Jabari Brisport's office again to present this really informative workshop to people in the community. We sponsor a lot of different workshops and seminars at Bridge Street, and this one is actually one of the ones that I've received a lot of requests for to do again. So I'm excited that we could do it this evening. I'm excited to do it again next year, and I'm happy that everyone is here. Enjoy the presentation. Have a happy holidays. I will be working with Nick monitoring the chat, and I will actually be dropping information into the chat as the presentation is going along. So different resources that may be mentioned. So please just take a moment to share them on your computer or click on them. And before we get started, grab a pen and paper. There's going to be a lot of information that you're going to want to take down and definitely want to take notes. So once again, my name is Nicole Graves, and I'm happy you all are here. Have a nice evening. Have a great, well, I'm not leaving, but have a great workshop.
Thank you, Nicole. Always a pleasure to partner with you and Bridge Street. So just to get us going with a few introductory remarks about some of the larger issues at play, and then I want to highlight before we get into the nitty gritty. So this is from, just letting someone else into the chat. So this is just some thoughts from the senator and our team. But before I get into it, I just wanted to start again by thanking Public Utility Law Project. I think this is now the third time we've hosted this with Pulp, and to get this to the community. We're so fortunate for their expertise and commitment to fighting for utility consumers. And again, thank you to Bridge Street for their constant partnership. We're committed to hosting these webinars to help folks understand what options exist to tackle your utility bills, and to show that you're not alone in bearing this debt if you have it. But while our office always seeks to support our constituents in navigating the system we currently have, we also want to be clear-eyed about the structural problems that exist so we can look toward the system we would like to build together. Utility debt has become so widespread in our community because private utility companies have monopolized their services. A utility monopoly system that the government enshrined, but that we can work together to undo. In our current system, these companies don't think twice about raising their rates because they know you have no other choice. I want to encourage us to think about a future where everyone has what they need to survive, including utilities. This would mean publicly owned utilities that guarantee service to you at a low cost or for free, instead of a system where utility companies try to make a profit off of you. This system already exists in some places. About 14% of utility consumers nationwide already live with public utilities. And it could exist for us too, but it won't happen on its own. We have been building a movement to make public utilities a reality. In New York, folks have already started to come together around the issue of utilities and demanding change from those in power. And for example, the senator and our team were proud to support the community organizers who pushed for a bill to force the New York Power Authority to build publicly owned renewable energy projects and to create the opportunity for that authority to hold a larger role in offering publicly owned power. The fight continues. As the Power Authority continues to set its sights too low, the senator recently rallied with organizers to pressure the New York Power Authority to create 15 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. That is the kind of goal that protects our environment while also providing public-owned power to lower your utility bills. But this is just the beginning. There's more work to do, and we need your help. So please consider joining us as we seek to make publicly owned utilities a reality here in New York State. And with that, I will be quiet, and I'm going to hand it off to Lori Wheelock from Pulp for the presentation. And just two more quick logistical things. This is being recorded right now, just so we can share with folks who couldn't make it. But I will turn the recording off during the Q&A portion so that folks can feel comfortable to ask questions and don't feel like their questions are being recorded. And that their privacy is, being impinged on. So that's that. And then just a quick thing, we're going to do a Q&A at the end, as I just mentioned. If there are questions during the presentation that feel relevant to the slide that would clarify things as we were going, I think we can be flexible with questions during that time. But if you have a question that's about your own case or something not related to the slide, maybe just wait until the end and we'll get to all the questions at the end. Does that sound good to everyone? If so, You can put a thumbs up in the chat in React, but we're gonna get going, and I'm gonna hand it off to Lori. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you so much to Senator Bridgeport, everyone over at Team Bridgeport. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much to Bridge Street Development Corp for having us. I can't believe this is our third training together. Please continue having us back. It's always so special to be in this space with you all about this important topic. And so just to reiterate, yes, these slides are going to end up right in your email inboxes. So feel free to sit back, take notes, ask questions. This topic can be a little heavy, but that's why we're here. Pulp is happy to answer questions, the Senator's office. We're always happy to help navigate this world and really try to empower, people in, New York State when it comes to your utility rights. So we'll get started and, we'll go from there. So again, my name is Lori Wheelock. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm the executive director of Pulp. Our organization is statewide. So if you have a friend, someone who's low income, maybe on Long Island or Buffalo or Binghamton or Albany, we can help them too. We don't charge for our services. We're very grateful. We're funded by the state of New York as well as the city of New York and some small donations. And so we are able to, assist people with their utility problems. We do specialize in low income residential customers. So again, if you know someone who might be struggling or needs some of that support, you can contact our hotline. We have a toll-free 877 number highlighted right here, and also an email address. We get a lot of people who just shoot over some questions, and we can help that way too, whatever people feel comfortable about. So we're going to talk about quite a few different topics today when it comes to your utilities. And so first and foremost, we always like just to take that moment to just kind of sit back for a second and talk about what is a utility? How are the rates set? What is there to know about rights when it comes to terminations for non-payment? When can they occur? Things of that nature. Financial assistance options are out there, especially again, if you are in the low income category, but there are also other aspects like payment agreements. A lot of New Yorkers also aren't aware that the utilities that serve us, be it Con Edison or National Grid, are actually regulated by the New York State Department of Public Service. So if you end up having an issue, you can reach out to the department, you can file a complaint, you can file questions. And so we like to spend time talking about what their role is and how you can access them for help if you need it. And the last component we'll talk about is energy efficiency. Another way to help lower utility bills can be lowering the usage itself. And so there's quite a few programs out there right now that we want to amplify. And with that, we'll get started. So what is a utility? In New York State, our utility services include everything from electric, natural gas, water. In New York City, they have steam and telecommunications, our internet, our phone, our cable. The two biggest utilities in your area is Con Edison for electric and National Grid for gas. These companies are what we call investor-owned utilities. They're private companies, and their whole job is to distribute that utility service to you in a very specific area, a service territory, if you will. On the government level, they are again regulated. So we have a Public Service Commission. There's a 7-member body. They're actually appointed by the governor and confirmed by the New York State Senate. And this 7-member body sits on top of the New York State Department of Public Service. And their job, their mission is to provide and make sure that the utilities in New York State that are regulated are providing safe, reliable, and affordable service. So when there's a rate change, when something's happening policy-wise, it's that 7-member body that ends up voting on the rate case or new consumer protection policies and programs and that kind of thing. Underneath that 7-member body is the Department of Public Service. They're the staff wing. They're what we sometimes call the worker bees. They're the ones out there doing the work, and they bring it to the commissioners for a vote. And again, at the end of the day, though, we have these regulated utilities. They're supposed to be providing safe, reliable, and affordable residential and business service to New Yorkers. Okay, so we know they're regulated. We know there's these utilities like Con Edison and National Grid. but how do they charge their rates? Because that's extremely important. And so in a few slides, we're going to look at some Con Ed and National Grid bills, but essentially there's two sides of every bill. And the stories that take place on these sides are very different. The supply charges are the price that Con Edison and National Grid actually pay to purchase that electric or gas. The supply charges are not fixed, but they're variable. They change with the market. And so if there's a big global, or national or regional issue, that can cause those supply sides of the bills to kind of spike. We saw this happen in the winter of 2022. That was when, the conflict in Ukraine started. We were kind of coming out of the pandemic, so there was low supply, high demand. And by February 2022, our hotline was ringing off the hook because people were seeing such massive change on that supply side of the bill. So it is something we watch, we're very cognizant of. That could change at a moment's notice, and that is the supply side. In New York, we do have what's called deregulation. There's a lot of different acronyms and big words, but deregulation means that the supply side is not regulated, but there are these other third-party suppliers that you potentially could get your electric and gas supply through. They're called energy service companies, or ESCOs. New York State does have a website. It's the New York State Power to Choose. If you wanted to, you could go on that website with your zip code, kind of play with it and see if any of the third-party ESCOs in your community are charging less than Con Ed and National Grid. And it's possible. Pulp does warn, though, the energy service companies have been under a lot of criticism in the past for some business practices. So we just warn people, be careful if you want to go this route. If you think maybe it's a greener option or maybe a cheaper option, just read the fine print, look at those terms, and you just got to check your bill every month. Sometimes what we see is you get locked in at a low rate, lower than Con Ed and National Grid, but when that contract period ends, you might get a skyrocketed price. And so again, just proceed very carefully, but wanted to flag that is out there. And so the supply side, again, unregulated, one side of the bill. The other side is what we call the delivery side of the bill. And so that is how the actual electric and gas is delivered through the transmission, the cost of the meters at your home, the cost for Con Edison National Grid to read your meters, the customer service team you may call, all the accounting, the billing, all that is built into these delivery rates. Unlike the supply side, the delivery side is regulated by the state. And so utility companies like Con Ed and National Grid can't just increase the prices out of nowhere. They actually have to file a rate case. They have to come to the state, to that Public Service Commission, and file and say, you know what? At Con Edison National Grid, we think we need more on the delivery side. We need to increase our delivery rates for a variety of reasons. And so I always like to flag that these are very different worlds, but they come on your bill and each have, different charges. So it's really important to take this moment and flag the National Grid just went through its most recent rate case. It lasted about 13 months. They did end up getting quite a large double-digit rate increase. And because of this, we are informing everyone and warning everyone this winter, if you do heat with National Grid, you could see as much as $30 more a month. The rates will increase again in January 2025. It could go up as much as $10 a month. And in January 2026, it could go up another $22. So it's really important to know National Grid just went through this rate case process. The state did approve them for a rate increase. They're trying to span it out over 3 years, but that does mean there'll be increases every year going forward to 2026. So again, knowledge is power. We want to make sure people are aware of this. Con Edison, on the other end, is at the end of their most recent rate plan. They could legally file their next rate case and ask for an increase as early as January 2025. And so we like to flag that for people. We'll remain in touch with Senator Brisport's office. there is usually public comment, there's public hearings, and these are the types of things where real people's stories on the ground are very, very important for the commission to hear. And Pulp usually intervenes, we get involved with the rate case, and we try to fight for stronger consumer protections and to cut costs where we can too. So we will absolutely keep in touch with everyone, because I mean, January is right around the corner. So recognizing, here we are, it's December 2024. We see that National Grid's rates are going up. We already know that there's been supply issues, some volatility on that side of the bill in 2024. People are feeling that financial strain. To be honest, we very much feel we're still coming out of the economic recession. Things are still and may never go back to normal, if you will. And so we get a lot of questions from people about what to do when they fall behind on their utility bills. Before the pandemic, we would often see people behind by maybe $900 was quite a bit. Now it's very common. We're seeing people who are behind by $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 because the rates are going up, because of different economic situations. And so this here is honestly the number one question we get is, what do I do when I fall behind on my bill? And how soon could they come and shut me off? So a lot of people, again, just not aware. The utility can't just come and shut you off without notice, and they can't just do it any day or time. Under the law, and New York State, thank goodness, has some good consumer protections here. Pulp, of course, is always looking for tweaks and ways to, make them stronger. But in New York, Con Ed and National Grid have to wait at least 35 days before they can move to shut you off. So what does that look like? They can send you that bill. I get my Con Ed bill, but they can take no action against me until that bill is at least 20 days past due. Once that 20 days pass, they have to wait another 15 days. And after that 15 days, that's when they can issue a final termination notice and let you know you are at risk for shut off. So there's at least 35 days. Once you get to that period of time, though, terminations can't just happen anytime or night. They can only occur Monday through Thursday between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. That means no Friday, no public holiday, no day when the utility's main office is closed. And while we don't have a winter moratorium in New York, the 2 weeks coming up, the last 2 weeks of December, there is an agreement by the utilities to not shut off. And that's really, really important to flag for people. So we are coming into that protective time in New York. Another thing to flag is that, again, Pulp has been working really hard in these rate cases to try to push for greater consumer protections. One thing that we were able to get Con Edison to agree to were extreme heat protections. So in the summer, when it's 90 degrees out, they cannot shut off customers for non-payment. We also made the argument that New York City and the service territory has a whole lot of pavement and sidewalks and is really a heat island. And we were successful in that. So Con Edison will not shut off now 1 day before or 2 days after that 90-degree weather. Pulp did try to push for 85 degrees, but we were only successful in this rate case in getting to 90. But we are in touch with our fellow, support system in the legislature and fellow advocates, because we think this is a serious health issue that needs to be discussed, not just for New York City, but the whole state moving forward. So again, flagging, New York does not have a winter moratorium. Some states, there's absolutely no shutoffs. You can't shut off, or you can shut no one off in the winter, but we do have extra notifications right now. So right now, between November 1st and April 15th, that is called heating season in New York. We are right there. We are in heating season right now. So not only does that utility have to wait 35 days to act, but they also have to go ahead and try and contact someone at the house at least 72 hours before they shut off. So it could be a phone call, it could be a knock at the door. They have to try and see if there's someone at home to talk to, and they're looking to see if there's a medical emergency at the home that would be exacerbated by that loss in the service. So not only do they have to do that check, but they also have to try again at the time of shut off. Now, this is really important because we've had several people reaching out to us across New York who have been shut off in this heating season right now. And so we do go through and we troubleshoot with them. We say, do you remember getting that notice in the mail? Did you get a knock at the door? Was there a phone call? If there's not, we can go to the Department of Public Service. We're going to talk about that helpline a little bit. But if they investigate and find out that these rules were broken, you can get a turn on order immediately and get that service restored. So again, the important thing to remember here is that there are protections in the law and those utilities have to follow them. If they break them, it's trouble, it's not good, and they can get an order for them to get turned, to turn the person back on. So that's a little bit about the consumer protections out there around those shutoffs. And again, information we think is really important to help people realize that they have rights when they're falling behind. This here is our master pulp checklist. Everyone who contacts pulp goes through this checklist with our staff. Sometimes one bullet point is what's helpful. Sometimes it's 2 or 3. And again, this is a way we kind of troubleshoot and try to help the person through this utility issue or concern. So the first thing is if someone has fallen behind or they get a large bill and they cannot pay it, we always recommend to pay what you can when you can. Yes, you may get that bill. Yes, it's $400. Let's just throw that out as an example. But it's always best to pay something if you can, because it will help us later on if we have to negotiate with the utility. It also helps prevent the snowball. The utilities can legally charge late fees, and those start to accrue really, really fast. So we always try to encourage people, pay something when you can, if you can. We also contact the utility. We can do that with the customer if they feel more comfortable and talk to them. Ask if an actual termination date is scheduled. That's really important. You may get a termination notice. That's always a warning. Take it seriously, but it may not mean that you are in that queue for the next day. So again, calling, trying to figure out if you're in that queue, am I at risk? What is happening is important. You can also talk to the utility, especially on the Con Ed side. We've had success in asking them for courtesy holds to give us time to try and work out other ways to potentially pay or get back on track. So that next step is that financial assistance piece. If you are low income, if you are a residential customer, HRA, Human Resources Administration, does have some funds available for assistance when it comes to utilities. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. Another thing that we can look into are medical codings, and 2 of them, serious medical condition and life-sustaining equipment. Both of those are really important. They are supposed to be on these accounts, notifying the company that if you lose service, it could aggravate your medical condition seriously, or it could cause extreme harm to your health, which is that life-sustaining equipment. This is an area it can be tricky to get these codings, but Pulp staff has been very successful in working with the company, working with the medical teams, doctors, and the individuals to try to get these added protections. There's also deferred payment agreements. And if you get a termination notice, often there is a standard offer in there for a payment agreement, but a lot of people don't know that they can try to negotiate. And the law actually requires that there be some sort of steps towards an affordable payment agreement. That last step is that Department of Public Service. We talked about them earlier tonight. They are the regulator. And again, they have a complaint process and an inquiry process that you can follow if you're concerned about trying to work with your utility and unable to reach a satisfactory resolution. So what we're going to do now is dive a little deeper into each of these points. And again, remember, like, these slides are yours. You will have them. But this is our main slide when we're trying to help people.
Lori, Lori, just before you get to this section, this may be a natural point. We could pause if anybody has questions about the first half about terminations or anything. If not, we can save questions to the end. But if folks,
I have a question.
Before we get into all the programs. Yeah.
I have a question. Hi, how are you? Good evening, everyone.
Good.
Unfortunately for me, my gas was turned off.
Mm.
I called HRA. First of all, I called HRA because I knew I was behind a couple of thousands of dollars. They wouldn't give me no assistance. I was trying to get a one-shot deal. I went for a fair hearing,
Oh.
and HRA admitted that they dropped the ball, right? So now my gas is cut off. So HRA says they're going to pay the bill to cut the gas back on, right? So
Mhm.
when I submitted my gas and my light bill for the one shot deal, it had a couple of thousands of dollars. So what happens is when your gas is shut off, the account zeroes out. So when it was time to put the bill back on, they only paid $85.
Oh no.
And then after a couple of days, I think it's 20 days, 25 days, then the original bill come back because they give you a new account. So where am I at now? Right back in the same situation.
I'm so sorry. That's horrifying.
Yeah,
Um, Lori, I defer to you whether you want to move through the programs that maybe will help address that, or do you want to and address that question at the end, or do you want to address it now? Defer
I
to
or
would
you.
do,
say,
or do you want to take my information and help me later?
yeah, I think Denise, just flagging this has complexities to it. And so it may be better if you want, when we get to the end, and I think we're going to stop recording as well. Maybe we could have a conversation.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Are there any questions about the slides before we move on that we just went over? And we'll have open Q&A at the end, so don't worry if you have any specific questions. But if not, maybe I'm seeing no hands raised. So Lori, why don't you continue?
All right. And I'm going to set my alarm too, because I know we're already at 6:34 and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. I'm totally fine going past 7 in time, but I know people have many things that they have to do too. So let's hop in. Um, so for low income customers, there is like an umbrella of financial assistance programs out there. And the first umbrella is really under HEAP, the Home Energy Assistance Program. HEAP goes with heating. So however you heat your home, if it's gas, if it's electric, if it's propane, we know there's still a lot of that, honestly, in the boroughs. This would be a great one-time grant. It ranges anywhere from 25 to 40 as renters, all the way up to 400 or 900, depending on the heating source itself. It does go by gross monthly income and household size. And so we have the updated numbers there. Regular HEAP is open right now, and then emergency HEAP will open January 2nd. Emergency HEAP is specifically for those situations when you get that termination notice. So it could be the electric or the gas side. If you get that termination notice, it can help with a one-time grant. Soon enough, April is coming. I know it's crazy to think we're just getting into winter, but cooling assistance, New York State through HRA can actually get you a rebate or subsidy for a fan or an AC unit. This is also a place though where Pulp is advocating that grant be opened up for actual financial assistance to help pay electric bills in the summer. We'd love it for a cooling cash assistance. We know a lot of people who get those AC units and then don't want to use them because they're terrified of the energy use and the electric bill at the end. So just kind of sharing, that's a policy thing Pulp will be really pushing on in 2025. Just hearing what Denise is going through, Energy One Shot. So that is a look back program. They're supposed to look at the account and go 3 to 4 months back and help pay with a grant right to the utility to help cover those months of usage. And then they're supposed to guarantee the next few months going forward. There's also sometimes local programs. We know United Way, for instance, Catholic Charities can sometimes have assistance programs. And then each of the utilities also have their own charitable programs. So Con Ed and National Grid, usually in January, February, have their own programs. And so just keep an eye out for that. If you're struggling this winter, go back to your utility and ask them and say, is your charitable program open? It can be sometimes $200 in grant funding to help you with that bill. Now, those are grants. Those are programs you apply for through, most likely HRA, or again, those local community groups. But Con Ed and National Grid also have monthly discount programs. And the way you qualify is if you're in one of these existing low-income programs now, so Lifeline Phone, SNAP, HEAP, Medicaid, Social Security income, if you are currently in one of these programs, you can enroll in a monthly credit off of your Con Ed and National Grid bills. And so it can be hard to find these on your bill. This is another thing Pulp does routinely with people, is we get a copy of that Con Ed bill or that National Grid bill. And the easiest way to see if you get it is in the megaphone section. So Con Ed does have these little messages, these megaphones, and usually in the right-hand corner, it will say, hey, you're getting an adjustment, and it's a credit of X amount of dollars. This is the energy affordability program. Most important thing to know, though, is the low income monthly discount. I was just in Queens, I think it was last week, we did an event there, and the individuals with Con Ed who we saw coming were getting on average about $40 to $45 off their bills every month. And that's real money. So we want to make sure that people check their bills. If you pull up your Con Ed bill tonight and you see this, great. But check it every single month because you don't want to drop out of it. This assistance can be really, really helpful for you. So that's the first page of the Con Ed bill. If you go through though, and you do not see that monthly discount, this is the application. And thank goodness it's one page, which is pretty rare, unfortunately, for anyone who fills out applications. A one-pager customer account information is really important. So for instance, I'm the National Grid account holder in my household. So since the National Grid bill is in my name, I'm the one who has to fill out the application. So customer needs to be the name on that Con Ed or the National Grid account. The beauty with this, though, is if you have someone in your household, someone who's living with you, maybe it's your child or a grandchild or a relative or friend who's living with you, if they're part of your household, but they are on one of these programs, you can actually work with them to qualify for the discount. So we routinely see this in families where they are low income, but maybe the grandmother is not currently on any of these programs, or maybe she's on Social Security disability, which is a little different, but she has a grandchild living on the house who has SNAP. So you can enroll, all right, Lori is the account holder, but the grandchild is the benefit qualifying person, and you just need a picture of that award letter within the last 12 months, and you can qualify for this program. So big tip, wanted to share that with everyone. Great way to save money off of your bill every month. National Grid's bills are a little bit harder to read. So their information is typically easiest to see on the third page of the bill, which is right here. And so again, every company is a little bit different, but if you pull up that third page of your bill, here it is. It says energy affordability credit, and you see the minus for $81.54. So that's where you want to check on your National Grid bill. And same thing, I always tell people, get that highlighter, highlight it, check it every single month so that you don't fall out of the program, because you want to make sure that you're getting that, consistently. National Grid's application looks very much like Con Ed's. It just has that different, color and logo and branding. Same thing applies. You can apply as long as you're the account holder. If you or someone in your household gets one of these benefits, you just need that award letter, and then you should be good to get these monthly discounts for a year. So a great way to save money. We've talked about the financial assistance programs out there, the monthly discounts, but sometimes, again, there's just these balances that are on the account that can really start to snowball. Most of the utilities are charging late fees again since the pandemic. I saw one woman in Queens last week. She owed about $4,000 and 40 of it was late fees. Next month, it might be another 40, and they start to snowball. Her monthly discount was $42. And so pretty much the late fees were eating up her entire discount. If you can get into a deferred payment agreement, it takes your account out of late fee status, so they can't charge you any more late fees. They also can't disconnect you as long as you're in a payment agreement. But this honestly has been the area where we've had to have the most negotiation and some of the most difficult conversations with the utilities since the pandemic. And so unfortunately, we've had to file quite a few inquiries and complaints with the state when trying to help people negotiate these. So taking it down, just a notch, a deferred payment agreement is a written agreement to pay back your balance over time. It's supposed to be signed by you and the utility representative. Sometimes down payments are required, but the law says that these agreements are supposed to be tailored to your financial circumstance. So under the law, if you're low income and you are dealing with financial difficulties, the lowest agreement possible is a 0 down payment and then $10 a month off your balance over a period of time. So what does that mean? Let's say Lori owes $1,000. I talk to Con Edison, I say I'm low income, I show them I'm on Social Security, and let's say I've never had a payment agreement before, I might qualify for this. And this means that I would have a 0 down payment, and then when my bill comes, let's say it's a $200 bill, they're going to tack on $10 to bring down the $1,000 I owe. So in December, I would pay $210. In January, let's say my bill is $300. I would end up paying $310. And it just keeps going. And I pay that $10 plus my current bill until that balance is gone. Now, unfortunately, again, this is the area we've had probably the most difficulty with because people have, larger arrears. Things are more expensive. Again, we've gone through financial distress. And so we often have to work with the customer, try to work with the utility. But if people are struggling, we do have to call the Department of Public Service and go through the complaint process to try and negotiate something that works for people. We at Pulp don't want set people up to fail. And I get really worried when, sometimes people come to us and the companies are saying like, we want hundreds and hundreds of dollars down and then, hundreds every month to pay off that bill. It's just not possible for a lot of people. So I'm guessing we'll probably have a lot of questions about this piece later on. And so we always then move to this slide. If you've tried working with your utility, if you talk to Con Ed, if you talk to National Grid, and you cannot resolve the matter with them, you have the right to file an inquiry, which is questions, or a complaint with the Department of Public Service. A lot of people have no idea that this is possible or this is out there. And so the first step is you can call the 1-800 number right here and talk to a department representative and tell them what's happening. If it's non-emergent, if you have concerns about your bills, if you have copies of the bills, you can also file online and upload everything that you're seeing. We see a lot of spike bills. Sometimes bills go up and down and things like that. If you have the ability, you could file it online and attach all that as evidence and ask questions that way. Once you go through this process, either online or over the phone, you get a confirmation number. That confirmation number is extremely important. One, it protects you from a shutoff. So while the dispute is active, you're protected from a shutoff, you're protected from more late fees, and it's also a number you can follow up on for updates. Most initial complaints, like the minute you make it, they kind of kick it back to Con Ed and National Grid. They say, you know what, Lori is not happy with that deferred payment agreement you offered her. She cannot afford those terms. You need to contact her again and try to work it out. If they do not contact me within 2 business hours and it's an emergency type situation, like at risk of shutoff, or within 2 business days, if it's a related billing matter, so high bill or meter concern, I have the right to go back to the department. Or if in talking to the utility, I still can't reach a resolution, I have that right to go back to them and escalate my complaint. At that point, the department engages, they investigate, and they will release a decision or determination for you. If, let's say it's again, I'm concerned, I need a payment agreement, they will not work with me, I file a complaint, and the department comes back to me and says, sorry, we think they're allowed to offer you what they're allowed to offer, I can actually appeal it. And most people have no idea. You can appeal it within 15 days and actually go before a hearing officer and push for change that way. If the hearing officer comes out against you, you can actually appeal further, and the entire Public Service Commission, that 7-member body we talked about earlier this evening, actually will vote on whether or not to support your position or support, that original outcome. If at that point, you still disagree, you have the ability to kick it all the way into New York State Supreme Court through a court action called Article 78. Now, again, I've said this a few times tonight, this stuff can be very heavy. The most important thing to know is there is a complaint and inquiry process out there. You have the right to go through it and to follow up and to be protected during this time period. So again, just really hitting on this point as an option for people if you need it. The last section here is energy efficiency. I won't spend too much time on this because it looks like we're going to have some really good questions and discussion coming up. But again, not only is Pulp looking for ways to save money on bills through financial assistance or discounts or, subsidies, there's also a potential component to lower your energy usage and ultimately your bill through energy efficiency. Every region in New York State now has a clean energy hub. And so when you get the slides, you can click this and you can go and look to see who your regional representatives are. There are programs called Empower, for instance, where they can come out and if you're low income, do an energy audit. Could you use, LED light bulbs? Do you need, new windows and Energy Star, equipment in your house? All these different programs are here and could be potentially helpful. New York State is also looking for more ways to try and offset bill impacts. This has been a budget discussion the last 2 years that we're really grateful for. Again, the state is looking for more community solar, discounts at the local level, and things of that nature. So again, a lot of what we talked about tonight is for low income, but our members in the legislature, PULP, the state, has recognized we have to look at moderate support as well. And so a lot of these programs are under consideration right now to see if they can also expand that eligibility. So these links here will be really good to spend some time, looking up your local addresses to see what might be available. So with that said, again, I know a lot was discussed tonight, but the most important things to remember are that New Yorkers do have consumer protections. There are rights in there about what to do when you fall behind. There are programs, especially for low income, payment agreements, negotiations, medical codings, things of that nature that, again, a lot of people are just not aware of. So our organization, again, is so honored to be here for the 3rd time with you all. And we really look forward to having a good discussion and digging deeper into what, you're dealing with and what your friends and neighbors are. So back to you, Nick, and thanks again for having me.